What's up, everybody? It is I, James, coming to you once again from the Nerdy Mewzings podcast studio. I am happy to be joined here today with my good friend, Tom Nguyen. How you doing today, Tom?
How you doing, buddy? It's good to be back after all these years.
I'm doing good, man. 8 years since the last time when I had you on my other podcast.
8 years since that, but I think it's been 9 years since we hung out in person.
Yeah, it
I want to
was
say 2015.
2016.
Oh,
I
was it
thought it was
16? Okay.
2015. I also thought that, and then I went back and I was just looking at the photos recently from that San Diego Comic-Con.
Nice.
And yeah, at least according to the AI overlords at Facebook, it said it was
Okay.
2016.
That was a good time.
It really
It was a good
was,
time
man.
because I'll tell you why I thought it was a great time, other than obviously getting to hang out, was because that is the only year that I went to San Diego Comic-Con as a fan. And I've been there like, I don't know, maybe 14, 15 times now, but always as an artist behind the table. So to be able to go as a fan and not have to stress over when I have to wake up, when I have to set up, tear down, do all these sketch commissions and just being a salesman and just, having my game face on for the 5 days straight. It was so relaxing. I had the greatest time there. I got to meet you. We got to, walk around a little bit. I know you were hunting around, I think, for like Ryan Otley stuff at the time. And
Yes,
it was just a lot
sir.
of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. And that's really cool to hear. Yeah, I imagine when you get into the industry and you become a professional and you're sitting there as a exhibitor, somebody who has a table and is doing all of these things, it definitely probably takes a little bit of that enjoyment out of just, like you said, getting to be a fan and getting to be in the moment and enjoying, probably a lot of the things that got you excited about becoming an artist and getting into comics to begin with.
That's exactly right. I love the way you put that, because it was almost for me at the time like a recharge into being a fan. And because up until that point, I probably had been in the industry for, about, almost 20 years at that point, professionally doing shows. And they were all from the insider professional standpoint and never as a fan. I mean, yeah, we have time where we can walk around a little bit and check it out, especially if it's a slower show and everything. But really, I think a lot of comic book fans and collectors, they don't think in terms of, we do this is a job. This isn't going on a trip. This isn't a luxury of just going around the country and just doing shows and it's like the dream life. No, we're hustling and, it's
Yeah.
it's a gig, We're all
It's
promoting or we're
interesting.
selling stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I can feel you on that because I know how it is to go around the world and teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And when your hobby becomes your livelihood and then you're doing it in a different capacity like that, it's like, oh, you get to travel, all over and teach jiu-jitsu. And it's like, yeah, but it's not like I'm traveling and getting to be a tourist and do other stuff while I'm in these places. I'm
Right.
literally getting off the airplane, going to the hotel room, sleeping, getting up early, going, teaching a seminar for 4 hours, get some food, go back to the hotel, get on a
Right.
plane the
Yeah.
next day and
Yeah.
head back home, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it is
And
really cool the interactions we get to have with our fans and with people who appreciate us and want to come and interact with us. I think that's the most special part of it, though, is that we get to do that.
right. And no matter how burnt out, I get, that's something that you really can't replace. I mean, I'm not complaining at all. I mean, it really is a life. I can't imagine doing anything else. I'm really blessed to be able to go around the country and sometimes out of the country to do shows. It's like, if I didn't have this job, like I would never see as much of, this country or just traveling in general as I do. I mean, this job has afforded me to be able to see so many places and meet so many people and different walks of life and cultures and stuff. So when
Yeah.
what I said earlier is not really a complaint, but everything becomes work at times, which is normal.
Yeah.
But it's not like like you said, it's not like we're just going and we're having fun being a tourist. I'd love to do that to every city I visit, but reality hits, and you know, you you try to take advantage of it when you can. I mean, sometimes I'll book an extra day or two after the show just to relax and decompress, and then I can kind of relax and check out the area.
Yeah, I'm right there with you too, in that I consider it a blessing and definitely not a complaint, but it just comes with the territory, and it's kind of the reality of any time you're doing your love and your hobby as your profession. I think it comes with that territory. Um, and yeah, I do the same thing, and sometimes I'll book an extra day or I'll go a day early just so I can enjoy a little bit of the environment that I'm in.
Right.
Going back to that experience at that Comic Con, something I'd been reflecting on recently about it is that I was very fortunate to actually get to interact with Kim Jong-gi and
Oh,
get some of his books and get one of his drawings inside the book and everything, and actually get
nice.
to see him in real life, like
Sure.
not knowing that, years later here we would lose him, like way early in his life, and at the peak of his career and everything.
Yep. Yeah, it was quite a shocker, and I got to get a picture with him, and I got a few of his books and stuff. Here, let me see if I can show you this. Speaking of
Yeah,
Kim Jong-gi,
you and your fancy camera here.
let's see if let me turn off this. See if this thing is tracks me.
See, we're
Um,
going like on the live tour now. This is like MTV Cribs.
mm,
Look at
oh, this
that.
is kind of a mirror image,
There you go.
but
Wow.
there's a picture of me and him in San Diego, and then a couple of his books, sketchbooks that have
Yep.
drawings in them, and then like a
Beautiful.
panoramic print,
Yep.
whatever. So
I think I have those same books. Yeah.
nice.
I've got a whole square over here of the shelf that's dedicated to his works. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
he's
just
awesome. It was so sudden,
phenomenal.
and um
Yeah, it's one of those things where just it really makes us value and cherish the time that we do have with people, and not take it for granted. I know over the years, like I've had jujitsu students pass away, unexpectedly, and you're just like in shock, and all you can kind of do is go back and really reflect on and cherish the time that you did get to have with them, even though, of course, the selfish side of us is always going to wish that there was more time.
oh yeah. Yeah, and I don't think it's so selfish if it's someone that, has impacted your life. Um because it's, you want them to be alive too. So I don't I
Yeah,
think selfish is kind of too harsh of a word sometimes when we're describing about people we miss. We
yeah,
just want to be able to share more happy times with them. But yeah,
definitely.
definitely a shock in the industry, like you said. He was in the prime of his career. He had so many years. I believe, if I recall, was it a heart attack, like cardiac arrest? Is that what it
Yeah, that's
was?
what it yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it sounded like. I don't know if any like official statement came out, but from the descriptions and everything, it sounded like that's what it was, just a sudden cardiac event that he didn't survive.
It's really a wake up call because if it was a cardiac event, I mean, he didn't fit the
No.
stereotype of what it looks like to have a heart attack.
No, he,
He
he
didn't look
didn't,
out of shape or anything.
no, and we were talking about that a little bit before we started, recording here, about how like we kind of have a stereotype in our brain of like somebody that has a sedentary job, and in the way that they look, and Kim Jong-gi didn't fit that at all, man. He actually looked like pretty fit, like he had some definition in his arms. He wasn't an overweight guy, and
Yeah.
seemed like he was always staying active and moving around, and it just shows us how precious and fragile our lives really are.
Yeah.
Definitely a wake up call, like you said.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
Well, transitioning from the somber tone and getting into all of
I
that,
know, it'd be
uh,
downer.
I know we're getting deep. I wanted to ask you about what you're currently working on because I keep track of you via Instagram, but with both of us being busy, we haven't really had a chance to chat recently about your current projects and anything like that. I've seen a few things posted on your Instagram that I'm excited for, but I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about what you're doing these days and what you're excited about.
Well, I'm most excited about. So I finally started drawing the sequel to The Switch, which is the brainchild of me and Keith Champagne, the writer. We put that book out. Um, geez, back in 2018, it came out, I think. So it's been a good, 5 6 years, and it's always been on the back burner. But things come up, projects come up. But we decided that this has got to be the year that it's got to come out, the sequel. So for those who don't know, The Switch is basically the original was a graphic novel, 90 pages. It was actually published through Dynamite, but originally we did a Kickstarter for it. It became pretty successful. It's just it focused on a gal who was part of like the worst gang you can imagine, just terrible crimes. And you know how in the circle of life, sometimes you just kind of leave your as you grow older and go through life, you kind of change circle of friends. They evolve or they change throughout your life. And she just decided she didn't want to do the bad guy thing anymore. So she just wanted to do, just wanted to quit the crime industry. But, being as deep in as she was, it's kind of hard to just quit and just say, hey, I'm a good guy now, because you got two problems. One, now you've upset your gang, and typically if you leave the gang, then the gang's going to try to murder you. And two, that doesn't make up for the crimes that you have committed in the past, so you still have to kind of atone for your crimes. So the only way she could do it was through a secret identity, like a secret superhero identity. And then so that's what the first one was all about. You can kind of guess that eventually, if you want to get into the drama part of it, I mean, it gets found out who she is, and then all hell breaks loose. But it has enough of a cult following and a readership with our loyal fans that they kind of deserve to get a sequel out of it. And
Yeah,
um,
I know I'm excited about it. Last
oh,
time
thank
you were
you.
on, 8 years ago, according to the internet, um, on my other podcast, The Spartan Underground, if anybody wants to go back and listen to that episode with Tom and I think that was episode 6 of that podcast. Yeah, I read the description and it was actually still live on Kickstarter
Oh,
when we
was
did that
it?
podcast.
Nice,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so that's now fast forward today, and you're working on the sequel. Um, and is that going to be just strictly? Do you already have a publisher lined up for that? Is Dynamite going to do
Oh,
it
we'll
again?
probably do a Kickstarter again. I mean, as far as a
Okay.
publisher, we're gonna try to publish it, or we will publish it under our own label this time, because what happened the last time with Dynamite was that, I mean, originally, oh, there it is. Originally, we were just gonna self-publish it through the Kickstarter, but then Keith had the bright idea, and he was like, "Well, let's just take it to Dynamite and see if they'll publish it," because we have a relationship with Dynamite. And it didn't hurt to ask. I mean, we know Nikki over there, and so we asked him, and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So that was great for us, and that it helped get us into more stores. It gave us a little bit more of a distribution, and even just like a nice stamp of legitimacy instead of just being a pure independent publisher and stuff. I mean, granted, we had our credentials and our career history to help us, um, and that's what we're going to rely on again. But this time, Keith and I, we have our own little fun imprint that we've been doing books under, called New Pain, which is a combination of my last name and his last name. But
I love it.
yeah, that's we're pretty confident it'll be successful again. I just got to get my stuff together and get it done. We just started, or I just started the current season, or the upcoming season of Big Brother, the reality TV show on CBS. For those who don't know, it's kind of like Survivor, but you live in a house. So every week someone gets evicted, and then last one standing wins, a bunch of money. But this will be my 11th year with them, and just started a couple weeks ago. So people ask, well, what do you do for them? Well, I'll do everything from like um, kind of visual development, conceptualizing some of the games and challenges they play on the show. In other words, producers will come to me and they'll say, this is what we want to try this season. We want to do this game or this challenge. But they come to me and they'll hire me to kind of visualize it, draw it for them. So then when they pitch it to the network, it's easy to explain and see. Anything from that to doing some artwork that's actually like on the walls in the house that you'll see on TV like all season, to just little drawings and designs that are part of the game itself. Like, for instance, a game might use something that has my artwork on it. Of course, the last decade, one of the classic challenges on that show is called BB Comics. And it's basically an entire episode dedicated to the comic book cover versions of the members of the house. And so, I'll be drawing at least some of those again if they do it again. So yeah, that's what's been keeping me, pretty busy. That and a lot of over the winter, I did a lot of more visual development stuff for other TV shows and stuff. So it's an interesting transition. I'm not completely out of comics. I like to keep one foot in comics, of course. I think the last thing I did on an official level is I did that variant Superman cover for that got distributed to all the children's hospitals and stuff through a wonderful organization called Comic Books for Kids. And yeah, they just distribute pop culture items and comic books to children's hospitals and troops around the world. It's a great cause. And but yeah, between just having my foot in the comics, where I'm doing Comic Cons, I'm always behind in commissions. That's never going to stop. And then just doing television stuff. It's been an interesting career.
Well, it sounds like you've really, kept your career very diverse and have several different outlets that you're kind of different channels that you're working in, which I think, it can be important for younger artists to, maybe consider not putting all the eggs in one basket and get yourself out there on as many levels as you can, especially when it can be hard to find steady work. Like, I don't think people realize how hard it can be to like get on a series and stay on it for a long time and do all these things. Like it's actually more rare nowadays. I think you don't really like
Yep.
see people on runs of books or anything anymore.
I'm so happy you said that, because you are so spot on. It's like when I was when it was getting towards the end of my getting steady work in comics and started, getting into more television stuff. I mean, the transition could not have happened at a better time for me personally. Um, and Keith and I talk about this a lot because we both started in the 90s, right? And we were just fully employed, maybe even, overemployed at times through I'd say like, through the mid-aughts at least, and maybe going into like the early teens of the new century. But during that time, we were so lucky enough to have multiple runs. I'm talking long runs. I mean, nowadays you see a lot of guest miniseries, guest creators and miniseries and arcs and stuff like that. And rarely do you see like a long run. But, like for me personally, I jumped in with Doug Mankey, the penciler, who and it's been a blessing in that we've worked on Superman, the Man of Steel. We had a nice long run there, to JLA. We did a year on Justice League Elite, which was considered a maxi series at the time. And then we went on to do Batman, which is a great blessing because even though we were on for, I say, only a year on Batman, that was the time where we worked on now what collectors consider a key issue of the first appearance of the Red Hood. So that was
Yes,
Batman issue
sir.
635. So,
Just found that in my collection the other day. I was like,
oh
ooh,
yeah, yeah.
score.
Yeah, and I'll get back to that issue in a moment. But
Yeah.
from there to working on Final Crisis, and then having a pretty healthy run, doing the Blackest Night saga, which was a huge epic saga at that time, right? It was the big deal. That's when the Green
Yeah.
Lantern movie was coming out. I was hopping between Green Lantern Corps to Green Lantern and back, and then I had a decent run on Catwoman for about a year, and then it just started like tapering off from there, and then that's when the TV stuff started increasing. So I mean, the timing was perfect for me, but my point was I was on enough long runs, good memorable story arcs, that to this day I feel so blessed because I'll still get royalty checks like every quarter from them, and it's I can't I don't know if there's any new royalty structure today, especially with the new creators coming up, and I don't know if how many creators can even build up enough successful runs to be able to enjoy like future royalty payments. So
Yeah.
going back to 635 Batman, so when I worked on that issue, this was 2005. So we're talking 21 years ago already. I can't believe, I mean, it seems like
That's
yesterday.
crazy, man. Stop making me feel old. I
I
see
know,
my
man.
beard here with all the gray in
I
it
mean, dude,
now,
I
and
mean,
I'm
I'm
like,
I'm
wait,
gonna come up
wait
on
a
almost
second.
20 years, yeah, or 30 years in the business. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
do I look like,
crazy.
I'm a veteran of 30
No.
years? But so anyway, when I worked on that, so Judd Winnick was the writer, Doug was penciling, I was inking. Um, it was just another gig. I mean, that was the first Batman issue of our Batman run, was that arc. And didn't really think much beyond that. Even when we were done with that arc, didn't think much. And then, um, DC would send us comps every month of everything we worked on, and also like every single issue that they published that month too. So it was like heaven for people who like just love comic books. But I would get 25 issues of every issue I worked on. So at the time, and I like telling the story, I was known to the neighborhood kids as like Mr. Comic Book. So every few weeks they would knock on my door and they would say, "Mister, do you have any comic books for me?" I'm like, "Sure, just take this." Because dude, I had so many boxes of comics that DC would send me that like I literally ran out of room in the house. So it was more of a burden than a
Yeah.
blessing at that point. And I remember I gave a bunch away of the 635s, right? Fast forward a few years, and then I find out that they're making a movie, like an animated movie out of that series. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Um, I mean, obviously, I remember the work the story I worked on, but that the fact that they made it to an animated movie was kind of cool because the DVD showed up in my mail. So
Nice.
I think they sent me a DVD, and then a letter. They might have sent me like a paltry little check too, like $150 or something silly.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll do that, and then they'll say, "Here, thanks for your work on the book." And I
Right.
never, to this day, I never watched it. Yeah, I will eventually. I mean, it's been 20
Yeah.
years, but no, but I jumped straight to the special features section because I wanted to see if they used like any of the artwork, and they did. That was really cool.
I was gonna say,
Um,
did they?
yeah, they did. And then as an aside, Zack Snyder's Justice League Blu-ray Special Edition, they also used some of that in the Talking Heads special features in the background
Yeah.
for something. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, and then they started using the Red Hood in like video games. They started making toys. And I'm like, holy crap! This Red Hood guy is starting to get really popular, and now he's like just super popular. Now it's a key issue. Can you believe it? So
Yeah.
then I look up on eBay one day and I see like slabbed, like 9 point something non-autographed Batman 635s are like $400+. I'm like, no. I'm like, I had
Yeah.
25 of them.
It's
So,
like those
anyways,
damn kids. Those damn
right.
kids got me. They're
And
out
they,
there
they
running
probably just,
around.
right. And they probably just trashed them anyway.
They're probably all
But,
crumpled up. Yeah.
but the funny thing is, I actually, I think a couple of years ago, I was cleaning out my parents' basement, just helping them move stuff around. I came across this dusty box and I opened it up and there was still 5 of them. Like I
Oh,
must
there
have
you
like
go.
set 5 aside, or I don't know why I found 5, but I found 5 in like really great condition.
Oh,
So
that's
maybe I should
awesome.
get those slabbed or something. I'll
I
sign them
think you should.
myself.
Yeah, sign them yourself. And then CGC will still put that label on there if they didn't, have you come in and sign them for them to witness.
Oh, I should bring it to Heroes Con. I'll be going to Heroes Con this weekend.
There you
They'll be
go.
there.
Yeah, they got to see you do it. Otherwise, you might be forging your own signature.
Right?
And you
Yes.
brought up
It's
a interesting name that there's a little Easter egg for people when you talk about Judd Winnick. Like that's a TV crossover there because he was actually on The Real World, and then
yep, Real
he
World
got
San
into writing.
Francisco.
Yep, and he got into writing comics. So there's a little Easter egg material
Yeah.
for everybody there.
Yeah, I believe he was on the very first season of Real World, if I'm not mistaken. And I've never actually met him in person. I think we follow each other on social media, and we'll like and occasionally we'll like and comment on each other's posts, but we've never met in person before. A couple of years ago, I tried to look for him at San Diego Comic-Con and couldn't find him. He wasn't at his table at the time. And then I think 2 winters ago, this other podcast arranged the Red Hood reunion, and he wasn't able to make that one either. They had to spice him in later in editing. So that's,
Gotcha.
two opportunities I couldn't get to meet him in. But yeah, I mean, he seems like
Yeah,
a
I was
really
gonna
nice guy.
ask. I was gonna ask, like, is he still active in comics? Like, is there any books he's actively writing? I'm not sure. Like, I can recall, like,
You know,
Google lists him. It's funny. Google lists him as an American cartoonist. Is how they list him under his name.
well,
But
you know
I
that
always
he is a cartoonist. I don't know
okay.
if
I
you
didn't
realize this.
realize. No.
That's actually what kind of got me into noticing him when I was a kid, and he was on MTV. Is because I remember watching one of the episodes, and I'm like, oh, this guy's actually a cartoonist, and he's like doing his drawings and working on his own book and story. So I think that's what he started off as, but he just, it just so happened that he built his name as a writer. Yeah, well, which is
Yeah.
good because then he could parlay his artistic skill into that writing, that resume.
Speaking of early starts in careers, like um, you're most known for being an inker in comics, and for those of you listening that don't know what an inker does, it's very specialized, and it's not just tracing as they made the joke in the movies about. It is enhancing the artist pencil artwork and making it so it shows up better in print, but it does so much more than that. Like a good inker really delineates and separates out the foreground, background, middle ground, and conveys motion, sense of weight, spotting of blacks to enhance the composition, like all sorts of stuff. So Tom is very well known for inking Doug Mankey for a very long time. As far as your ink work goes, like when did you first get into the industry as an inker? What was your first big break?
So I broke in the industry when I was 19. I broke in with Doug. Well, we didn't break in together. He was already in the industry, but that was my first gig was DC Comics, inking over Doug. But I had been friends with Doug for 5 years at that point.
Nice.
I mean, I met him when I was a kid. So essentially, he was the guy that mentored me, so having that connection was great. But, like having that type of critique and training that young, the reason why we met each other is because we both had the same art teacher. Like I ended up having the same art teacher that he did when he was young. And she's the one that introduced us together because, she saw that,
Wow.
I was very, I was like him. So that's how we met. But I didn't want to break in as an inker, and inking was never my thing. I wanted to draw. I wanted to be a penciler and everything. But at 19, I was in my first year of college at the University of Minnesota. But this opportunity came up in a new book called Major Bummer for DC Comics. It's kind of like a slapstick comedy superhero book. Some might remember. I mean, it's got a very tiny cult following. But actually, I got a Major Bummer poster here. Let's see if I can.
Nice. And this is why I encourage everybody to pop on over and watch the video version of the podcast so they can check out. We always have cool stuff. There we go. There's the
Oh, I
Major
can't.
Bummer. Yep,
That's
I can
the
see it.
so that's the original poster, promo poster that a cool fan gave to me last or 2 summers ago in Connecticut, or no,
Oh,
last
wow.
summer in Connecticut. And he had 2 of them, and I told him I never got one when I was a pro. But anyway, um, but yeah, it was a Major Bummer. Lasted 15 issues, which is a miracle these days. If for a no-name
Yeah.
book to last 15 issues. Um, so I ended up being Doug's inker, and for half of my career easily. I mean, I was the guy. Um, my thinking was I could. Here's a chance. They were looking for inkers. I already knew Doug's strengths and weaknesses as far as what he likes. That's a bad way to put it. Not Doug's strengths and weaknesses. I meant to say I knew what he liked in his line work for, as far as, I was emulating how he was inking himself on the mask and everything, and I was using a brush a lot. That's how I grew up inking, was with a brush. And I knew that those are the types of lines that he liked. So I kind of took that advantage and thought, well, I could break in now at age 19 as an inker. I mean, it's still an art job, and get my foot in the door, start, I can be a pro and start making a living right now. Or I can take the chance of, I don't know how long it would take for me to break in as a penciler. I said, well,
Yeah.
why don't I just use inking as a stepping stone? And so I did. I went up against, I believe, 6 other professionals, and I got the gig. And they were all paid to try out too. So I was just like a young kid, a no-name kid, just a year out of high school, and I broke in, and that's what it is. As far as the art of inking is concerned, um, you're right. It's such a specialized and kind of like a nebulous term that people still don't really understand what it is. You know, my favorite way to explain it, and my inker friend Mark Stegbauer said this a long time ago. I'll never forget it. But you're going to have a variety of different pencilers. You could get a guy who's great. You could get guys who aren't so great. To the point where sometimes you're going to think as an inker, it's like, I'm better than this guy. Why don't I just draw it myself? To
Right.
guys who are really rough, to guys who are super tight, right? So you're going to get the whole gamut of pencilers. What an inker does, a good inker will take what he's given, whatever it is, he redraws it. He just redraws it in ink. That's his job. Redraw it in ink, make it look great in ink so it's printable, and you can do whatever you want as far as to your discretion, as far as you can add detail or textures or shading or whatever. But your job is to redraw it in ink and make it pop. So that's how I describe inking.
Did you find it? Obviously, you worked with Doug for a long time, so you probably had a comfortability with him. When you were a young inker inking other people's work, did you find it intimidating at all? Like, were there certain artists that you were like, oh, I really want to not mess this up type of
Not
thing? Or were
once.
you always
No.
just like, I'm going to get in there and do my
Nope.
thing? And
Nope. I never. I was. Even back then, I was like, I can ink anyone. And the reason I was that confident is, well, 2 reasons. One, I mean, I was inking over Doug. I mean, he's one of the best.
yeah, he's
So when
amazing.
you ink over someone that great, it's less intimidating to approach other people, right? And the second is, I always was confident in my ability to draw. Like I said, I never wanted to break in as an inker. It was just an opportunity that I took, and I ran with it. But I was just as confident in my ability to draw. So, I think that the inkers who lack that confidence, I'm guessing probably don't have that that artistic drawing, um, like technical know-how, the background.
Yeah.
Because and you've seen examples of this as an artist yourself, I'm sure, where you see one guy pencil a page and you have five different inkers ink it, and they all look different. And
Yep.
it just, every inker's got their own style, what they bring to the table. And a lot of what they bring to the table is how much they know how to draw. You know, if a guy is giving you a really rough sketch and nothing's defined, who's going to turn out a better end piece? An inker who knows how to draw, or an inker who just knows how to make fancy lines, but is just kind of guessing on what the penciler is. You have to look at a penciler's work and know what he wants. Through his scribble is like a language. You have to be able to read it. Doug can put a scribble here and scribble there, and I know exactly what he wants there. But like a newbie inker might be intimidated and not know what to do with the scribble, and might just try to
Yeah.
put fancy lines to kind of cover that up. So, no, I never
Yeah.
was intimidated. I mean, you can give me any, artist, and I'll do it.
Sometimes I look at, I have a ton of these art of books and the books with where it's all just the pencils. And sometimes I look at some of Greg Capullo's stuff and I'm like, man, how would I interpret that? Like he leaves a lot of stuff very loose, and he's been fortunate, in his modern career to work with some really, talented inkers who
Mhm.
have to be coming from that place that you're talking about where they can also draw and they're confident in that interpretation of his work. It's definitely I think inkers are very underrated, and I'm not just telling
You
you
know,
that because you're my friend, but I think
well,
it's a very underrated art form in and of itself.
yeah, it's interesting because it's a rare, underrated art form. Like I said before, that is still kind of like nebulous to a bunch of people. But in this day and age, it's interesting because now you have publishers who they're almost, like, I get the impression they're almost kind of encouraging the the new pros coming in to ink their own work, or you're finding more pencilers trying to ink their own work. Now, some of it
Yeah.
might be cost saving measures. It might be cheaper to pay an artist who can do it all rather than pay two separate jobs, a penciler and an inker. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of at least enough artists who will take that job.
Yeah, you
Um,
you see that, and you also see where they'll like have somebody just pencil really tight, and then they'll go in there digitally and try to make it look like it was inked.
oh
I,
yeah,
I
that
spot
rarely
I,
looks
I
good.
spot that. I spot that quite a bit, and I'm like, I just
Yeah,
never quite unless the artist has a certain style that
right. Yeah.
translates to that, and there's a really good colorist working on it. Sometimes it can work,
Yeah,
but
Joe Madureira is interesting because he can make that work. And he's always hiring the best colorists who know his style. So he's a guy that pencils tight enough, and I think that he can kind of get away with it. I prefer an inker over him, but I don't mind him penciling his own stuff and doing that way with a great colorist. One of my inker, associates, my colleagues, um, Tim Townsend. I always loved the way he inked over Joe Mad.
yeah, I
So,
think that was the best stuff on Battle Chasers was when Tim was doing it.
well, Battle Chasers, I think, was Tom McWeeny, who was also great.
There was
And
an
they
issue that
oh, was
there
there
was
an
an
issue
issue
where
that
Townsend?
Tim did. Yeah, I'm pretty
Okay,
positive. Yeah, it's one of
okay,
the my favorite. Like it really stands out if you're going through the run and then you see that
yeah,
issue. It's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. Tim is great. I mean, he's one of the slickest inkers in the business.
yeah, his stuff on Joe's work was just amazing. I remember it really like popping and like, whoa, like it's one of those kind of that marriage between the artist and or the penciler and the inker that just like they just enhance and become a whole other thing. It's like a whole,
Yeah,
it's like they
yeah,
just created a new artist with their amalgamation.
yeah. It's like some people, some pros are just known as a team, as a part of a team, rather than the individual. Um,
Yeah.
some of the famous teams throughout the years. I mean, it's because they work well together. They have a very distinct look that when you try to pair them up with someone else, it's close, but it just doesn't quite look the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't think back in the day you could. argue that if someone said, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an inker. Like that used to be, that could be a career path. I don't think it is anymore these days. In fact, if someone told me they wanted to be a full-time anchor, I'd just tell them to give it up.
Yeah.
It's just that the industry has
Speaking,
changed.
yeah, for sure. And you got to kind of evolve with the times, unfortunately. When we go back to talking about like having those fundamentals of drawing down and that being so important for a inker, you've provided some awesome resources in the books that you did, the incredible comics line of how to draw books that you did. You did one specifically for drawing women, and then the first one that came out. Like I think those still hold up to this day as some of the best drawing books on
Oh,
the
thank you.
market. Are those still available? Do you know if those are still in print, or do I
Well,
have like something to
you
put on
have
eBay
something
later?
rare. Yeah, you probably have they're not in print. They're no longer in print. They're out of print.
Uh,
Um, but what you said really means so much to me because every now and then I'll get a message from someone that said, "Hey, I have your book." Um, when I wrote those books, I just kind of wanted to cultivate like a personality, just kind of be goofy and have fun with it.
Yeah, they're,
And
they're
I
hilarious.
guess
They have all the
somehow
pictures of you
yeah,
with the bikini babes in there
yeah,
and everything else.
I guess somehow it resonated because, I think at the time, like no one had ever done that. Um, I mean, even before then, I mean, Doug and I put out a couple DVDs on penciling and inking
I
way
was
back
just
in like
gonna mention those.
2005.
Yeah, those are
And even,
those are over there too.
yeah, and even then, I mean, that we're trying to be like cutting edge. And to this day, I don't think anyone's ever approached it like that.
Did you
Um,
ever recover from your burns from the burrito that you microwaved in the video and
yeah.
got out of the microwave when it was too hot?
Was it, did it burn my mouth? Did I put it in my
I
mouth or
think it
something? I
burnt. Yeah, it
remember.
burned. Yeah, you burned your
Yeah.
mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe you remember that.
Glad you
Um,
survived.
yeah, but it was an interesting time. I mean, actually, I think a couple weeks ago, I put up a picture of Doug and myself, screen captures from a local news station when we were like
Oh wow,
from 20 years ago. Like if you go back on Instagram a couple weeks, you'll see it. But that was from when we were promoting those DVDs.
nice.
But yeah, I mean, it really means a lot to me that you and other artists. I mean, I've gotten emails from like France, like people buying my book in France and writing to me in French,
Wow.
about how they enjoyed the book. And I mean, I've got somewhere, I don't think let me see if I have the Chinese, they sent me like Chinese editions of the book
Oh wow.
too, which I've never seen anywhere else. Let me see if I can find it here. Give me a second
Yeah, well,
here.
you do that. I'll see if I can grab these off my
Okay.
shelf over here to show everybody.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I found them right away. Everybody listening to the audio version, make sure you pop over. Yeah, Incredible Comics with Tom Nguyen, Incredible Comic Book Women. Look at this. And the most important part on the back,
Oh, the picture.
he's all jacked in his tank top there with some bikini models. Man, rolling with the squad.
I'm telling you, man. Like
That's
I just
awesome.
wanted to do like something that was different. Just like have fun. You never
Yeah.
saw instructional books like that. You never
No,
saw
nothing like
DVDs
that.
like that. It's just
Yep.
have some fun. Um, yeah. So
Oh, there you go.
this is pretty cool,
Nice.
huh?
That's probably really rare.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, I'm not letting go of
Yeah, for
these,
sure. No,
but
times get tough. You gotta
you're right. Yeah, just like my
save those.
Batman 635.
Yep.
But I'm so happy that you asked about if anything else, was gonna come out of that because um what I've in addition to the Switch 2, I'm kind of secretly, I guess not so much anymore, chipping away at a no holds barred um like ultimate edition of How to Draw Women book. I mean, this is
Nice.
not an updated. This is not an updated. I mean, this is literally a brand new follow up. That's not only is it. how to draw women, but it's how to photograph them for photographers.
Okay.
So, and this will be nothing like you have seen before, true to my goals and my style with how I teach.
Yes, yes.
So
And
when I was doing,
just in advance for my wife, she knows it's for artistic purposes.
oh yeah,
If there's
totally. Yeah.
beautiful women in there, it's just learning,
Yeah.
learning to draw better.
Okay. So here's a teaser that I'll give you, and your viewers hopefully will be intrigued by this. But basically, when I was working on the How to Draw Women, the Incredible Women with Tom Nguyen book back in the day for Impact books, like Impact is like done. They're like dissolved or out of business stuff.
Yeah, they put out some of the really, really had a lot of stuff come out for a period of time
They
there.
did. They were really
A lot of how to
prolific.
draw. Yeah.
So it's kind of sad how that kind of disappeared. But anyway, so what this new project is going to do, it's going to basically release all of the shackles that were put on me for when I did the first book. Mainly, I was limited to 128 pages. I mean, really, I'm glad people like the book, but really it just scratched the surface of what I wanted to show. I mean, we had to cut some stuff out to make space. We had to censor some things, some things were just kind of like not, too hot to handle.
Too lewd.
Too lewd. But this upcoming project is pretty ambitious because we will have none of that limitation in content or anything. To give you an idea, I've already shot most of the material like 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Now you say shot. What do you mean shot material? Well, we have most artists have probably seen or checked out or own these figure drawing books, right?
Yep.
On like photographs of turnarounds of the human figure, male, female, whatever, and different poses, perspective, just figure drawing books.
That's this section right here is
Oh yeah,
dedicated to that. That's all of these are.
I've got this one. A friend of mine gifted me this one a while back called
That's a good
Atlas
one.
of Foreshortening.
Yeah,
And I don't know if, and it's just basically got, this, but it's just like a whole book full of different poses and everything. Well, mine is similar, but mine would be women. Why? Because they're harder to draw, I think. It's easier for people who want to break into comics. It's easy for them to draw like big muscle superhero guys. Women, I believe, are harder and there's more subtle touch. And but I mean, really, it's because I want to. It's because it's it's just fun. It's kind of, I guess, for lack of better way of explaining it, for better or for worse. I mean, I kind of have that reputation of drawing, like just really, just cute or, like pretty comic book girls. I get requested to draw a lot of that for commissions and stuff. And I work really hard to try to do that. I always kind of jokingly say that, you can be a terrible artist, but if you can draw women well, I mean, you'll find a way to make a living.
There's people that have made entire careers and continue to
there's nothing wrong with
succeed
that.
with their careers doing that, right? So
exactly, yeah. So this upcoming project is working title only. It's going to be called Ultimate Women with Tom Nguyen, but it's going to be I've shot the models. One of them's a Playboy model, former Playboy model, and everything. So how is this going to be different from a typical like figure drawing book or how to draw women book? Well, how do I say this? The models are going to be unlike anything you've seen in a typical art book.
We'll let people use their imagination.
So, I mean, they're really fantastic, and if people know me well enough, who follow me or are fans, I mean, I think they'll understand, because as you know, James, I moonlight as a photographer. So
you do, for many years.
Right. So these will be professionally shot models. And it's a book that teaches you drawing, gesture drawing, and lighting. So the lighting is going to have, there's going to have diagrams for photographers, and the drawing stuff is going to be for artists. So it's actually hitting two audiences at once.
That's gonna be
Um,
amazing. Yeah, I know for me, like I feel like there's not enough stuff on lighting out there when it comes to comic book art. It's like such a vast area and such an important part of like really capturing form and everything that a lot of artists struggle with. I know it's personally like one of my biggest struggles right now is light and shadow. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
yeah.
Definitely.
So we're looking forward to, hopefully when I finish the Switch, jump right into this. Or maybe this might go before Switch 2. We don't know. I mean, the bulk of the material has been shot. We're talking like
Do
hundreds of
you
photos. So,
do you think you're gonna do the crowdfunding route with
oh
that as
yeah,
well?
oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I think crowdfunding is if you can manage it right and you have a good track record, then it can work pretty good for any creator. On a similar note, when I was talking about inking being a job and something that an artist used to be able to aspire to, it's kind of like back in the day, you could ask a kid, like what their end goal is, or not just a kid, but any aspiring artist. And for comics, the end goal was to work for the big two, Marvel, DC. Now the whole landscape has changed. I always say, get your foot in the door at the big two, milk that for what it's worth. Build your audience, build your social media following, get on those big books, and then leave, and then start your own IP, and then
Yeah.
bring that following with you, and creator owned is the future. So that's what I've been saying for a long time.
It's interesting. I just had this kid on here, Joshua Durstein, and he has successfully funded his Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I forget which one he's on, but it's called Amarok, and he started it when he was 16, and he got like, I think he's, if you look on there, he's like over like $24,000 in backing, and he's
Nice.
doing like a 48 page of his creator owned. And what's really interesting about him is he learned to draw because he wanted to be able to draw his character that he had written like when he was several years younger, and that inspired him like, oh, I want to be able to bring him into real life and draw him. And he's only 19 now, and the kid's phenomenal and
Yeah.
has this project. I told him, I'm like, oh, you're kind of going the opposite path. You're going to do your creator owned thing, get that out, and then do you want to, try out for Marvel or DC? He's like, yeah, I'm hoping that once I have a body of work like that, it'll help me get my foot in the door with them after the fact.
Yeah, and I neglected to mention that that's also a possibility nowadays as well. As you go the backdoor way by building up your gaining an audience. Then the end of the game is you just want to have a following, and that people can look at and say, okay, there's a reason why he has a following. Whether
Yeah.
there's something he built over a long time or a sudden success of a single project, but the thing is with social media, which is really is such a pain in the ass. Social media, it's like a second
Yeah, it
job.
is.
I feel like
Yeah.
got to keep up with all these platforms. But back when I broke in, we didn't have that. We relied on the big publishers to do the advertising of our names for us, like in like Wizard magazine, or in one of the ad pages inside the comic books themselves. But
Yeah.
now with social media being widely available and free, and now it's like the game is wide open for anyone. So you
Yeah.
really have to work it. I always say, no one is going to give you money if they don't know who you are. So when you start out, you are your own manager. So you have to really, it's tedious, but just be consistent with it, and it will come, it will grow. As long as you're
Yeah, he was
good,
real.
talented.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, he was smart about it because he not only built his social media following and continues to do so, but then he also is being mentored by inker John Livesay,
Oh
who's
yeah, I know
doing
John. He's a friend of mine. Yeah.
yeah. So John's like took this kid under his wing, and he's inking all of this book that he's doing,
Oh
and
great.
so he was telling me how much like John's helped him like bring his vision to life and everything, and how much he's mentored him. So it kind of reminds me, going back to you when you got started, kind of having Doug mentor you, like
Yeah.
those mentorships are so important, man, especially when you're getting into business as vast as the comics industry. Like I don't think people realize like how hard it is to get in. And I know, I guess the biggest thing I can tell people is like with like I have jujitsu people. I used to coach MMA fighters, and I've coached people. I've cornered at the UFC and done all that stuff in the past.
That's cool. That's
And
awesome.
like, yeah, to get somebody to that level though, like people just think they're going to come in and train a few years and hit that level. It's like, no, that's literally like the odds of that are you like you getting into the NBA or NFL or anything else. And
Yeah.
same to becoming a successful comic book artist. Like it really takes a lot to break in. Like people have more resources nowadays, I think, to get noticed. But that just means like you have even more competition.
Yeah. I especially back in the day when really the big two were your only viable options as far as being able to just make a living and the path to building a fan base and stuff. I mean, it's I would say, yeah, the broad commercial pro level, it's like the big leagues. Like you said, it's like an elite athlete. I mean, I'm not trying to make what I do sound like it's anything special, you know, because there are varying styles and skills of all types that enter this industry now more than ever. So like part of it is how do you define being a professional? Is it someone who gets paid
Yeah.
to do what they do, or is it someone who's technically proficient? Um, I mean, a little bit of both, different proportions of both. But yeah, it's as far as the grind to break in. I mean, that's a tough one. But staying in is even tougher. They say that breaking in's the easy part, but staying employed is the hard part. Because you get a lot of fly
Yeah.
by nights that come in, they'll break in, and then they'll work on a few things, and then they'll just kind of disappear. Um, so who knows whether that's on their own, you know, choice or not.
Yeah. Well, speaking of athletics and athletic endeavors, you were big into baseball coming up, and you said that was kind of a passion of yours. And I
Well,
know
when I was a
we
kid, I
saw
was
the when you were a kid when we saw the Conseco jersey over there prior to the stream going live, and
Well, I'm
yeah,
I'm a
that's
fan.
cool.
Oh, I did I
Yeah,
show
but
that before the stream? Do you want me to show that
I
during the stream?
I think it might have been before. The redundancy is fine. If you want to show it again, that would be awesome.
Let's see if I can point the camera. You can see.
There it is.
So,
Nice.
I mean, it's flipped,
I'm
but
assuming I'm assuming it's signed.
it's signed. This was gifted to me by an old friend I used to go to elementary school. Well, middle school, high school, everything.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, you see the
Got a
Jose
bat.
Canseco signed jersey. That's
I see
Mark
a bat up
McGuire.
there.
Mark McGuire
Oh,
autographed bat. Mark
wow.
McGuire autographed ESPN magazine. In the middle there, that's a picture of me and my wife with Jose Canseco himself. On
Very
the
cool.
on the wall on the side, the two pictures. That's a Jose Canseco autograph, Sports Illustrated, and then you have four, like a print of Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, Will Clark, and Kevin Mitchell of the San Francisco Giants. They were a big rivalry at the time in the late
Yeah,
'80s.
I remember
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm a baseball fan. I'm not. I'll go hit some balls every now and then, but
Well,
I
I
mean, I
think it's
really.
in.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say I think it's important for people who are listening to the audio version only. Like you're not the stereotypical build of a comic book artist. You've maintained you were into bodybuilding and have tried to maintain being in shape and everything. And Doug's the same way. He's like big into powerlifting. There's several like comic book pros that are
Well,
pretty fit these
Yeah,
days. I
Capullo's
was
into
just
the
gonna say
weightlifting, and
you took it
stuff.
out of
Yeah.
my yeah. I remember
Frank
when
Cho. I
Capullo.
mean, he's yeah. I don't know how many people know this, but he's a big bencher. At least he used
See,
to be. I don't know if he still is, but he used to be really big into that. Keith Champagne is he trained some Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
oh okay.
Yeah. So
I think I
he's
remember seeing something about that
yeah.
back in the day. I think he posted something and I commented on it or something.
Yeah. So, whenever he and I do Comic Cons that happen to fall on a UFC weekend, instead of going out with the boys after the show, we just stay in the hotel room, get pizza or something, and just watch UFC.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's I've always been into like physical activity. I competed in bodybuilding in 2002. I did two shows. I won my weight class in both of them. The second show I qualified for nationals. So what that meant was I wasn't a pro, but I was one win away from being a pro. Um,
So
which I
you
thought
would have gotten your pro card had
would
you
have gotten
won
my
one more event.
IFBB pro card. So that was 2002. I was working on JLA at the time. I distinctly remember turning off the TV because I was dieting at the time that I was trying to work on JLA. And the TV I normally have on just for background noise, but the
Yeah.
food commercials and the fast food commercials would just drive me insane because I'm just trying to survive on plain chicken and oatmeal. And
Man, I
I
can't
was
even
close to
imagine.
contest then. But
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to focus and work being on a cut like that.
it was tough. You know, uh, Now that we're talking about it, I distinctly remember for a while around that period, I was like, I'm going to be the first pro in the world. I'm going to be the first double pro in comics and bodybuilding. That was my goal. I'm going to do like Mr. Olympia convention or the Arnold Classic convention, and I'm going to sign comic books there too because I'm going to be the first double pro or something. But
That would be amazing.
it wasn't meant to be. I did two shows that year. I had been essentially dieting all year, well, almost without a break. And the second show I qualified, so which meant that, because I'm in the Minneapolis area. So the national show was, I think, in Dallas that year. So after I won and I qualified, I would have 1 month break and then I'd have to go compete again in Dallas to try to get my pro card. And I thought, at the time it was like, I was really close to wanting to do that. And I thought, man, I've been dieting for a year. I'll just take a year off. I'll just eat normally. I'll still train, but I just want to relax because, I just want to eat. I'm sick of starving. And I'll compete
Yeah.
next year. I'll requalify. I don't care. But it wasn't meant to be. I was enjoying food so much. And then by the time next year came around, I was like, I'm just not ready to compete again. I think I'm just going to hang it up. I had nothing more to prove to myself. I mean, I just did it just to see if I could do it. Um, and I got two trophies out of it, and I'm proud of that. And um, you know, I I still try to keep up in shape. I'm just trying to maintain and be like stronger than the average Asian dude. That's all I care about now. Because
I think you got
I'm
that down.
47 years old. I don't have a 25-year-old body anymore.
You and me both, man. I'm going to be 47 in October here.
That's right. We're peers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it definitely isn't as easy anymore.
No, man.
We
It's like,
definitely like, I remember being able to eat clean for like a week and like losing 3 pounds. And now
oh,
it's like
dude.
you do everything right and you're lucky if you can lose a pound.
Oh, man. I'm right there with you, man. And I'm working out. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing more cardio than I ever have in my life, and it's still like
Hmm.
not coming off. I remember every time I started dieting back then, like if I really want to go and do a hard 3 month cycle or if I'm preparing for a show, I'm not joking, James. I could drop 15 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Just cold turkey start dieting. Now, a lot of that was water, obviously, but still, I can't even do that, not even
No, it's
close.
not like that.
So,
Yeah, not like that anymore for sure. And the recovery time after the workouts is definitely it's a little bit of a process now. I've added in arm wrestling to the mix too, along
Oh
with the
man,
jiu-jitsu, and
that's crazy,
that's a
dude. The arm
whole other
wrestling makes me I think that freaks me out because I've seen enough videos of people like having the
arm
fracturing their
breaks.
their arm breaks and
Yeah.
then like having like really weak rotator cuff muscles and stuff and
So there's a
I'm
there's a real there's a real misconception on that, because that's what everybody brings up when you first tell them you're getting into arm wrestling. And
yeah
actually, the best way I can put it, since you're somebody that watches MMA, it's when you see somebody in arm wrestling get their arm broken, it's extremely uncommon. And
yeah
it is usually the equivalent of if somebody was caught in an arm bar and they decided they weren't going to tap and they were going to let their arm break.
oh, I see okay
So the person themselves is putting themselves out of alignment and continuing to try to fight, and it puts pressure back here and it causes that spiral fracture you'll see happen. So like
yeah
if you're an amateur arm wrestler and they see you in that position, they're like, stop. Like you're doing bad technique. Don't We're not going
yeah
to let you continue if you keep doing that. So
right
yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, that's the first thing. I don't want to break my arm,
well
and they don't realize how much technique there is to it.
I'm glad you explained that. So I guess in a way it's kind of like um the worst cases spread out more easily out into the world for people to see, and then that gives them the impression that it's more common.
100%.
So
Yeah,
okay,
just
yeah,
like any video of somebody getting choked out and people relating that to jujitsu or whatever, like
right,
extremely uncommon. Like, but yeah, it's interesting. And what drew me to the arm wrestling is how much of a crossover there is with the techniques of jujitsu and the techniques in arm wrestling. So
hmm
just like in jujitsu, a smaller individual with really good technique who's strong can actually beat a bigger individual who doesn't have the technique. So
yep,
I've had guys that were like 160 pounds pin me, and I'm
yep.
6'5" and 310 pounds right now.
Right, right.
So
It's just
yeah,
like
so
with
that really,
powerlifting. I mean,
yeah,
you see a lot of like tiny guys, that can bench 300 plus pounds, and
yeah,
it's all technique. I mean, some of it's raw strength too, but that's built alongside technique. And I mean, same with baseball, swinging the bat. A good technical swing, you can get more pop and more distance off of your bat than someone who just has very bad looking swing, and they look like they can hit a 500-foot home run, but really, I mean, if you don't have the technique, you can't do anything.
exactly, my friend. Well, man, I'm just really happy that after all these years we were able to reconnect and get you on here for a little hangout tonight. I know
Oh man,
it's
anytime you want me back,
it's
man.
yeah, it's later where you're at. And, I'm a West Coast guy, so it's only like a little after 6 here, but it's got to
Oh
be
yeah.
getting. Are you in? I was going to ask you, I know a lot of artists are kind of night owls. Are you a night owl? Yeah.
Generally, I mean, at least I have to be this week. I got to pull a couple all-nighters before I can go to Heroes Con just to get enough work done here. I got a pretty tight deadline
One,
with the Big Brother stuff right now. So
I, I, I always notice that with artists that a lot of us are like night people, but for a lot of the pros, I wonder of how much of that's just because it's a necessity to hit deadlines.
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, a lot of creatives I know are night owls, and I've thought about that myself. Like, why am I like that? And I think maybe for me, the part of it is because in the middle of the night, there's really no distractions. I'm not,
Mm,
people in the house are sleeping. Um, no one's calling me. Nothing is even, and this is the most important distraction for me. Nothing is really open for me to like be distracted to like leave the house and go to. Like I'm forced to stay in my house and work. So,
so you're
if,
able
if the
to get
mall if the
your
mall was open, I'd probably just go like people watch at the mall or something, or have an excuse to go buy food or something silly.
go to the mall and draw people.
Go to the mall or just go see a movie. I don't know.
Do you ever do that, or have you ever done that where you take your sketchbook and go and just sit and kind of try to capture people's likenesses and things like that? I know
I used to.
a lot of artists recommend that as an exercise, and I'm friends with Ron Garney. He's a fellow jiu-jitsu guy, and
But yeah, I think didn't you throw
long
up some
time.
reel with him on
Yeah, yeah,
Instagram? I
yeah.
saw you.
Yeah, and he was actually just on the podcast, and I know he always tells me, he's like, when he gives me advice about my art, he's like, go sit down and just draw people kind of thing. And I mean to do it, but I haven't gotten around to it, Ron. I'm sorry. It's never going to
So
promote me.
I've
It's
yeah,
funny. He does belts for me. So he has a
yeah.
jiu-jitsu white belt. I'm a
Yeah,
two-stripe white belt in art right now. I'm never gonna
that's
get to I'm never gonna get to my blue belt if I don't get out and start drawing people.
I I took uh I took Taekwondo when I was like 12, and I
Yeah.
got like halfway through, which for us was like blue belt, and then I
Yep.
stopped. I just got really bored of it, and then I like as a joke I started my own thing like Nguyen-Do,
Yeah, I
which
remember
is like
that.
my kid version of mixed martial arts. But
I
going back
remember.
to like drawing people, I mean
Yeah.
I've tried to like do the whole arty thing where you go out in public with a little sketchbook and just draw, but just never. It always felt like work. It's like I'm forcing
Yeah.
myself to do it, And I always thought that was such. If you have to force yourself to practice to draw, then it doesn't become fun anymore. I think
Right.
the best time to learn anything in art is when you're in the mood. Because when you're in the mood and you have that excitement that you want to pick up the pencil, now your brain is invested emotionally into what you're going to put down on the paper. But if someone told me, okay, today's assignment is go to the mall and draw like 10 different people, sketch 10 different people. It just sounds like work, and I'm just not into it. Just don't care.
Yeah.
And I won't get anything out of it because I'm not into it. I won't be focused. That's an individual thing. But yeah, I've never been the type of guy that's like, I'll just draw every chance I get and be like an artiste. Um, it's like a lot of the stuff that I draw is because it's a job. I don't have to. And then, on top of that, I've got to do commissions. And on top of that, I'm trying to chip away at a book. And it's like, it's almost like dangerous territory. It's like everything is becoming work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's how I am, with the exception of, obviously jujitsu is still my passion and everything, and it is my livelihood, but I still keep it fun, and I don't really look at like the act of teaching jujitsu as work. It's more like running the business side of things. That's where it becomes more work related, answering emails and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
right. Yeah. All
But
that
for me,
administrative stuff.
yeah. And for me now, I got into another hobby that's physical with the arm wrestling, but I'm just doing that for fun. I'm not looking to make money doing that or win any world title. At least I don't. If that happens, cool, but it's not my
Well,
plan at this
what's the
point.
furthest you've gone with that?
I've won the state championship. So I won the Washington State Championship for the amateur on the right and left arm. My
Oh,
first
you're like
tournament,
ambidextrous?
yeah, we do. I do both arms.
Dude, I was a switch
And my
hitter when I was playing baseball. I did left side and right
Yeah,
side.
in arm wrestling, a lot of people will compete on both sides just to get experience. So I did well in the state championship. I had done one tournament prior to that where I took gold on the right for amateur and silver on the left at my very first tournament. And then here recently, I just did a smaller one and I took gold right and left for amateur, and I actually was able to get silver on the left in the pro division. So that's kind of
Nice.
where I'm at with it now. Only three tournaments in, still very much an amateur with only like as far as like serious training, just a couple of years of practicing regularly and everything.
When's your next tournament?
Right now, my next tournament will actually be a jiu-jitsu tournament. So I'm going to try to capture my fourth world championship coming up in August. So I will be switching my focus a little bit, kind of still training the arm wrestling, but as far as competing in arm wrestling, I'll put that on the back burner until I'm done, hopefully going and accomplishing that goal in August down in Vegas.
Yeah. So do you pay attention to guys like Devin Larratt and um there's another
Oh,
guy,
yeah.
Russian guy like Dennis. I don't know how to say his last.
Saplinkov.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, how I got into arm wrestling was seeing one of Devin's videos and starting to follow him. And I started communicating with him through Instagram during the pandemic and just told him how I liked what he was doing and his content he was putting out, and how that was kind of helping me through a depressing time. And we struck up a little friendship through his mutual love of martial arts. He's like a lifelong martial arts guy. Nice. And way back then, we came up with a plan once the pandemic calmed down to have him out to teach an arm wrestling seminar there at my jiu-jitsu school. And it happened. We ended up doing that. Great. And had like 150 people there. He taught, the first day was an arm wrestling seminar. Second day, I taught a jiu-jitsu seminar that he attended. And yeah, so yes, huge Devin Larrett fan, and I can call him kind of, an acquaintance level friend. I've hung out with him. I've talked to him on the phone, that type of stuff. And
is he going to do a podcast interview anytime?
He's been on my other podcast. He was actually my most recent, my last episode that I did on that one was actually him and his son, Auden. So yeah, we actually recorded that one in person after the seminar that he taught. And we'll be bringing him out here again soon, getting him out to the place and doing another seminar here. And hopefully the plan is to do, instead of doing a day of arm wrestling, day of jiu-jitsu, we're actually going to host an arm wrestling tournament, and then the second day do the seminar while everybody's like worn out and ready to be technical and learn.
Right. Yeah.
Last time he was here, literally he arm wrestled people for 7 hours straight, like with no break. Like he was literally drinking water with one hand while he's arm wrestling people. And he would teach for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then he just one after the other having people arm wrestle. The guy's just a genetic freak.
He's kind of an entertainer from the clips that I've seen of him.
He really is. He's a real character, and he's definitely done the most to get exposure for arm wrestling and getting it more into the mainstream. So pretty much anybody who's gotten into arm wrestling over the last like 3 or 4 years, they all have a similar story about how they got into it because one of his videos popped up on their YouTube or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mr. Tom, it's getting into the evening here, and I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. I look forward to doing this again soon. Maybe we can get on here and do this when the new art book becomes official, and get you back on, or even before then when the Switch, the second part of that is getting ready to come out, get you on here to share some more information about that stuff. Does that sound like a plan?
Oh, that sounds great. Anything to promote the stuff, man. That would be great.
Awesome, buddy. Well, listen, I'm going to see what kind of dance moves you have. I'm going to hit my outro music here. Some people are limited to voguing and raising the roof and all these different things. Some people just, so that's the Macarena. You're doing the Macarena there.
No, I learned that from Madonna back when she did her
Oh,
music
my goodness.
video.
She started it, huh? All right, I'm going to hit the outro. Everyone, keep it nerdy. Make sure you go to tomnguyenstudio.com. Is that correct? Did I get it right?
Yeah, it's not updated, but I need to update that. But yes.
And follow him on Instagram at Tom Nguyen Art. And I will make sure to include those in the podcast notes for everybody. And anything else you want me to include, make sure you send it my way.
Instagram is Tom Nguyen Studio, but my Twitter or X is Tom Nguyen Art. So it's either studio or art, if you go to any of my social medias. But that's fine.
If you look him up, you'll find him, but I'll get the correct versions of the links in the notes here. All right, I'm going to hit this outro. We'll break out our dance moves. Here
I got to dance. Are you dancing too?
I'm going to do something. I don't even know. All right, here we go.
Okay.
What do we got? Raise the roof. Oh, you're going to get up? The camera can track you? Dang, dude. Oh, you're going to... What about that?
You see I'm just bouncing my pecs. That's all I'm doing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's funny.
Bouncing to the beat.
The the last guest was doing some arm wrestling movements. He's actually an artist who's an arm wrestler.
I'll do some posing. I gotta stop the tracking.
Yeah, there you go. Get some posing going.
Some bodybuilding posing.
There we go. There it is. Let's see the tricep. Got the tricep pose.
What's the better lighting? This is my farmer's tan. It's all washed out.
There you go. See that rear lat spread to take us out, Tom.
Rear lat spread.
Yep.
You need a widescreen for this.
Boom.
Boom.
All right, everybody. Keep it nerdy.
Bye, everyone.